28% told that the duration was not specified to them. Then we asked the frequency of the exercise. 57% told that they were asked to do the daily, and 34% told it was not specified to them. So we can see that only the moderate awareness is there regarding the benefit of exercise among the type 2 diabetic subjects. This study stresses on the imperative need of educating the diabetic subjects. The exercise prescription on the type of exercise, frequency and duration is not according to the standard recommendation. So the healthcare professions should give exercise prescription according to the standard recommendation. So the physiotherapists have a major role here in educating the diabetic subjects regarding the benefit of exercise. And we are supposed to give exercise prescription according to standard recommendations. So this helps in reducing the exposure to the complications of the type 2 diabetes mellitus and improves the quality of care. So for this, a major understanding of one's role is vital. So this study prompted us to think of presenting a proper exercise prescription in this conference. So exercise, before going to exercise, we will see the situation in the pre-diabetic stage. Exercise and pre-diabetes, what the evidence says. The Danquin study in China, so they included exercise as a treatment and reported even modest changes in exercise, like 20 minutes of mild or moderate, or 10 minutes of strenuous, or 5 minutes of very strenuous exercise 1 to 2 times per day reduced the diabetics risk by 46% in compared to 42% for diet plus exercise and 31% for diet alone. The next, Finnish diabetes prevention study as well as the US diabetes prevention program, they included intensive lifestyle modification with both diet and increased physical activity. So both studies reduced the incidence of diabetes by 58%. So the increased physical activity reduced the risk of type 2 diabetes mellitus even when weight loss goals were not achieved. So the physical activity plays a role in preventing the type 2 diabetes mellitus across the ethnic groups and in both sexes. So one study is done in Japan, the other is in India. So a Cochrane review of 2008, it shows that increasing exercise combined with the diet are able to decrease the incidence of type 2 diabetes mellitus in high-risk groups. High-risk group means the people with impaired glucose tolerance or the metabolic syndrome. So to summarize, we can say that there is a firm and consistent evidence that programs of increased physical activity and modest weight loss reduce the incidence of type 2 diabetes mellitus in individuals with impaired glucose tolerance. So exercise and type 2 diabetes mellitus, what the evidence says. So in a Cochrane review, they included 14 RCT comparing exercise against no exercise in type 2 diabetes mellitus. So the results showed that exercise significantly improves the glycemic control in type 2 diabetes mellitus. So this one Cochrane review is sufficient to support the significance of exercise in type 2 diabetes mellitus subjects. So before going to exercise prescription or before going to give instruction to diabetic subjects, we are supposed to do an exercise stress testing. So we will see whether exercise stress testing is required for diabetic subjects. So the stress test is not required if all the criteria is present. You can see in the left side, if there is no clinical history of coronary artery disease, or if the subject is asymptomatic, or if there is no evidence of cardiovascular disease or peripheral arterial disease, and if the ECG is normal, and if the subject is supposed to do a light to moderate exercise program. In this situation, stress test is not required. But you can see in the right side, that is stress test is recommended if any one criteria is present. That means the subject is having a history of coronary artery disease and the no stress test is done within the past 2 years. And if there is some symptoms of chest discomfort or dyspnea, and the clinical or laboratory evidence of peripheral arterial disease or cerebrovascular accident, and the ECG shows the evidence of infarction or ischemia, and if the subject is going to do a vigorous exercise program. So in this situation, the subject should undergo a stress testing. And after the stress testing, there should be an evaluation for all the diabetic subjects for retinopathy and a severe autonomic and peripheral neuropathy, because these are some complications of diabetic subjects. And before going for an exercise prescription, you should educate the subjects regarding the symptoms of myocardial ischemia. The subject should be educated on the hydration, subject should be educated on footwear, the subject should be educated on the beneficial effects of exercise. That is very important. Then going for exercise prescription. As you all know, the exercise prescription should include the components of like frequency, intensity, time or duration, type or mode, progression. But all this should be tailored to the patient's abilities to safely perform the activity. We'll see what is the frequency. So the duration of increased insulin sensitivity with exercise can last up to 48 to 72 hours. So there should not be more than 2 consecutive days without physical activity. So a subject with diabetics should exercise a minimum of 3 days per week. The current guidelines for adults generally recommend 5 sessions of moderate activity. The intensity. The aerobic exercise should be at least moderate intensity, corresponding approximately to 40 to 60% of the VO2 max, or 55 to 69% of the heart rate maximum, or the rate of perceived exertion should be between 12 to 30. This is from Exercise and Sports Science Australia. So for most people with type 2 diabetes mellitus, the brisk walking is a moderate intensity exercise. So if you couldn't do all these VO2 max, or we couldn't do the heart rate maximum, we can ask them to go for a brisk walking. So the subjects will get additional benefit if they are doing vigorous exercise, but it's not possible for all the diabetic subjects. But if possible, we can advise them to go for a vigorous exercise. And here the VO2 should be 60%, exercise should be 60% of the VO2 max, or 60 to 84% of the VO2 max, or 70 to 89% of heart rate maximum, or the RPE should be 14 to 16. Next we will see the time or duration of the exercise. So a systematic review and meta-analysis by Daniel et al. Shows a weekly exercise volume of more than 150 minutes per week resulted in absolute HbA1c reduction of 0.89%, while an exercise intervention less than 150 minutes per week only reduced the HbA1c by 0.36%. So the individuals with diabetes should engage in a minimum of 150 minutes of exercise at a moderate intensity or greater in a week. So, as well as to prevent the onset of type 2 diabetes mellitus in high-risk adults, they are also advised to do 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity as a part of the lifestyle changes. Next, the type or the mode. As she has already told, the aerobic exercise and resistance exercise is beneficial for the diabetic subjects. The aerobic training, such as walking and cycling, this will maximize the caloric expenditure, and the blood glucose utilization by muscle usually rises more than the hepatic glucose production, as well as this improves the insulin sensitivity. The resistance training has been related to the improvements in insulin sensitivity and the GLUT4 number and function. It also increases the muscle mass. So both aerobic and resistance training have important roles in type 2 diabetic subjects. So aerobic or resistance training alone improves the glycemic control in type 2 diabetes mellitus, but the improvements are greatest with combined aerobic and resistance training. So a meta-analysis by the Neil J. et al. And shows effects of different modes of exercise training on glucose control and risk factors for complications of type 2 diabetes mellitus. So he actually compared that aerobic training with resistance training and combined training. So it shows that all of them have small to moderate beneficial effects on glucose control in type 2 diabetes mellitus, and small beneficial effects on some risk factors for complications of diabetes mellitus. And there is some evidence of small additional benefit resulting from combining aerobic and resistance exercise. So both aerobic and resistance training should be combined in the exercise prescription for type 2 diabetes mellitus and pre-diabetes subjects. But selecting the appropriate mode depends upon the patient's preference and safety issues regarding the state of type 2 diabetes mellitus or other conditions. As all of you know that the diabetes mellitus affecting the old age, so by giving resistance exercise or walking or moderate intensity exercise, you should always look into the safety aspect. So the modality of exercise chosen to improve the glycemic control should be matched according to the comorbidities of the patient. So before going for the exercise, subjects should be advised to go for a warm-up and cool down, that is for 5 to 10 minutes of low intensity aerobic exercise. Then followed by that, they should undergo a flexibility exercise, stretching. This is recommended for increasing the range of motion and reducing the risk of injury. But no studies that directly evaluated whether the flexibility training reduced the risk of ulceration or injury in people with type 2 diabetes mellitus subjects. So there is insufficient evidence to recommend for or against the flexibility exercise as a routine part of the exercise prescription. Then progression of aerobic exercise. At present, no study on individuals with type 2 diabetes mellitus has compared the rate of progression in exercise intensity or volume. A gradual progression of intensity and duration is advisable. So is resistance training safe for diabetes mellitus subjects? So no serious adverse events have been reported in any research study of resistance training in patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus. So no evidence that resistance training actually increases the risk of stroke or myocardial ischemia or retinal hemorrhage. So in healthy older men, the myocardial demands of high intensity resistance exercise were comparable to those needed for activities of daily living, such as climbing stairs or walking up a hill or carrying 20 to 30 pounds of grocery. So diabetic subjects can safely do the resistance training. So it can be done using machines or free weights, and it should be done at least 2 to 3 times per week. And the training should be moderate of 50% of 1 repetition maximum, or it can go up to vigorous, that is 75 to 80% of the 1 repetition maximum. Each training session should minimally include 5 to 10 exercises. It should involve the major muscle groups and complete 10 to 15 repetitions to near fatigue as fatigue per set early in training. And it can be progressed over times to heavier weight that can be lifted only 8 to 10 times, and minimum 1 set is supposed to do. So as you know that now I have told you regarding the exercise prescription, I have discussed with you the frequency, intensity, mode and the duration. But as all of you know that most of the diabetic subjects will have some complications. So you should also know what are the important complications, as well as whether it's advisable to do exercise in spite of the complications. So safe exercise participation can be complicated by the presence of diabetes-related health complications. Here special considerations are needed, so we will see that. So then this is an important complication, peripheral neuropathy. So subjects without acute ulceration may participate in moderate weight-bearing exercise. Here the comprehensive foot care and use of proper footwear is recommended. So moderate walking does not increase the risk of foot ulcers or re-ulceration. So in this situation, peripheral neuropathy, if the ulcer is not severe, they can go for exercise with proper footwear. Then another complication is autonomic neuropathy. In diabetic subjects, due to autonomic neuropathy, there can be silent ischemia, heart rate and BP abnormalities, resting tachycardia, orthostatic hypotension, impaired exercise tolerance, lower maximal heart rate. So if a person is giving exercise prescription to diabetic subjects, he or she should be aware of all these issues. So here, moderate intensity aerobic training can improve autonomic function in individuals with and without cardiovascular autonomic neuropathy. But before going for exercise, the individuals should be screened, as well as a physician approval should be obtained, and he or she should supposed to undergo an exercise stress test. And the exercise intensity here, it is best prescribed using the heart rate reserve method with a direct measurement of maximal heart rate. The another complication is retinopathy. So the exercise and physical activity are not known to have any adverse effect on vision or the progression of non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy or macular edema. So the individuals with retinopathy may receive some benefit such as improved work capacity after low to moderate intensity exercise training. So subjects with the proliferative or severe non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, they should avoid activities that greatly increase intraocular pressure and hemorrhage risk. So here, high intensity aerobic or resistance training with a large increase in systolic BP, like head down activities, jumping or jarring activities, should be avoided. The another complication is nephropathy and microalbuminuria. So both aerobic and resistance training improve physical function and quality of life in individuals with kidney disease. So there is an increase in BP during physical activity may transiently elevate the levels of microalbumin in urine. The microalbuminuria is associated with increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So before physical activity here, subjects should undergo a screening and we should obtain physician approval and possibly undergo stress testing to detect the coronary artery disease and abnormal heart rate and BP responses. Here the exercise should be begun at a low intensity and volume because the aerobic capacity and muscle function are substantially reduced. And the subject should avoid the Valsalva maneuver or high intensity exercise to prevent excessive increases in the BP.